Hello and welcome to Nullitaire Gaming, where we play games with 0 players, or in other words, we play bots against one another. And in this series we're playing Pendragon, The Fall of Roman Britain, from GMT Games. This is the 8th series in, the 8th volume in the coin series, designed by Morgan Guillen-Reti. And we've already started the game. We played the first couple of cards, I think. But we're going to continue on in this video. So if you haven't seen the first video in this series, I would recommend starting there. So I'll put a link in the description of this video to the entire playlist, so you can start from the beginning if you like. Okay, let's set up the game from where we were and let's continue on. Okay, the game is set up again. And if you've been around my channel at all, you may have noticed that things look a little different. This is not what it usually looks like around here, and that's because I've moved into a new office space, and now I have a little extra space that I can use for board games. Well, which is great, because before I was just doing this on my dining room table in my tiny condo, because I don't have a dedicated gaming space at home, and so I would have to take it down and put it away and bring it back out and set it back up for every video, which is a real hassle. But now, hopefully I'll be able to just leave this game out here, because I have some extra space now. Okay, so that's a good thing for the channel. Hopefully that means that I'll be able to put videos out a little more frequently, hopefully. Okay, but please bear with me as I have to mess around with the lights and other kinds of things to make this work. Unfortunately, my office doesn't have any windows, so I have no natural light in here. So lighting may be a little bit of an experiment. Okay, anyway, let's move on to the rest of the game. I do need to make some corrections. Okay, I did leave a comment in the last video. I noticed when I was watching back the video that I'd made a mistake, and so I put a comment there about it. But I think it's going to be something we can correct fairly straightforwardly. So let's talk about it. What happened is I put some Dux Federati Scotti here in Parisi. But that should not have happened, because that can only occur where there are some Dukes pieces, and there aren't any there in Parisi. So that was an illegal move. Okay, so let me walk you through how we're going to fix that. So it was on the Duke's turn where this occurred, and the Duke's was trying to do intercept. Okay. But they were also trying to use invite as a feat. So this is where the Federati were placed. Okay, so they chose the Scotti, and they're supposed to place them at a vacant site. Yeah, right. So so we had no guidelines on exactly where to place them, so they just rolled randomly to decide. And when they made the random roll, they rolled a 4 on the D6 and a 3 on the D4. So it came up Corioltovi. Okay, but Corioltovi there did not have an open space to place a settlement. Did have Duke's pieces though, so that part was fine. The only problem was they had no open place to put the settlement. So when I went back to the chart here, I just went down, as you're supposed to do when you're picking a random spot. Parisi's next. So looking back at the map, Parisi did have an open space right there. And I'd kind of forgotten about the requirement that there be a Duke's piece there, which is required by the invite feat location. One space with a Duke's piece and friendly control. Okay, so it does require a Duke's piece. But because Corioltovi had a Duke's piece in it, I just kind of forgot. I thought all I had to do was look for an open place to put the settlement. So I just kind of forgot about that. And so these pieces should not have gone there. So what should have happened? Well, we should have kept going down this chart. Next would be Brigantes. So if you go to Brigantes here, there is an open space for settlement, but again, no Duke's pieces. So that is not an acceptable place. So back here, we go on to the next one, would be Dekiangli. That is over here. Hey, and there is a Duke's pieces there, and there is an open spot for a settlement. So that is where, that is where the Federati should have gone. Okay, let me fix that up. There we go. And together with the okay, together with those, should have gone there. Okay, but that's not the only thing we need to change in order to fix this. So on that same turn, the Dukes were trying to do this intercept. Okay, so we fixed the invite part. The Federati should have been placed in a different spot. Okay, and then moving on, the Dukes wanted to remove the most raiders able, moving from friendly control spaces, choosing the fewest spaces needed, and moving Federati first. So what actually ended up happening with this intercept is the Dukes selected Textuarity and moved one cavalry up to Votadini in order to do the intercept up there for those raiders. Those raiders ended up evading, and so nothing happened there. Same thing happened in Textuarity. The raiders evaded, and so nothing happened there. And even in Parisi, when the Federati were there, the raiders evaded, so nothing happened there. So all those raiders evaded. Okay, but then 3 cavalry moved from Eberacum down here to Durotriges and destroyed all the raiders that were there. They're gone now because they were destroyed. But those 3 cavalry came down from Eberacum to do that. Okay, now that was incorrect because the Dukes should have prioritized moving Federati. Now when I mistakenly placed the Federati in Parisi, we didn't move them because there was a raider there for them that they wanted to attack. So the Dukes didn't want to move them away. But now, putting them where they were supposed to be, there's no raiders there. So the Duke should have moved those Federati out of there, down here, instead of these cavalry. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these 3 cavalry, put them back in Eberacum. Okay. And instead we will move these 3 Federati, sorry, the 2 Federati down into Durotriges. And they would have wanted to move one more from here. So we take the Duke's cavalry. So that puts 3 pieces there. Okay, exactly what they moved from Eberacum. So instead they're moving them from Dekiangli. Okay, and they have to leave, the Dukes has to leave 1 piece behind per fort, according to their priorities. Leave 1 friendly troop per fort. Okay, so they couldn't move that last piece. Okay, but now, what about Parisi? We have no pieces there to take care of that raider. Okay, now I think this is wrong. And it's wrong because in order to now cover Parisi, the Dukes would have to select a 3rd space. They selected Textuarity because they had to move 1 Duke's cavalry up into Votadini. Okay, they had to do that because they needed to move from an adjacent space because there's no road into Votadini. So they had to move from an adjacent space. Dekiangli here is on the road, and Durotriges is on the road, so they can move easily. And Britain control is everywhere, so they can move through there easily. Okay. So, and they can't move any more pieces out of Dekiangli, right? Because that 1 Duke's piece has to stay there with the fort. So it looks like they'd have to select another space now in order to move a piece into Parisi, which they want to do because we're told that they should try to remove the most raiders able, moving from friendly controlled spaces. And the first priority is few spaces needed. Federati's the second priority. So I actually think, as far as movement was concerned, I was right the first time. They should have moved from Everacum, because even though they wouldn't be moving the Federati, they want to choose the fewest number of spaces first. So they could have just chose Everacum, sent 3 cavalry down to Durotriges, and then move 1 over into Parisi. That would still leave them 1 behind with the fort. So by doing it that way, they only have to choose 2 spaces. If they choose Dekiangli and move the Federati, fine, but now they need to choose a 3rd space in order to cover Parisi. Okay, so with that in mind, we will take this back. This was incorrect, I believe. Okay, so the Federati should just go right back to Dekiangli there. And instead we take the 3 cavalry, put them right back where they were, and move 1 cavalry over into Parisi. Okay, and that fixes everything, I believe. Again, all those raiders ended up evading, so nothing happened there. And the raiders down here got destroyed. Okay, but as far as I can tell, nothing else that happened in the last video was affected by any of that. So everything should be fine now. Okay, so the card is Hengist, and the Saxons are up first, and they are eligible. So let's see what they want to do. So Saxons have raiders in 2+ clear. Nope, they have no raiders on the map yet at all. And or 15+ raiders on the map. Nope. And or greater than 2d6 plunder. No. Okay, an effective priority event. Remember, we have that sort of gray shield in the background, means a priority event. And Saxons, by sequence of play, may use it. Okay, yeah, I think that's true. Here's the shield in the background, and yeah, they can use it because they're first eligible. So let's see if it's effective. Barbarian Strongman takes over. If one region with Federati and Civitatis pieces, remove all militia and all Federati markers of 1 color. Okay, this would be ineffective because the only space with Federati is Dekiangli, and there's no militia. Well, there are no Civitatis pieces there. Okay, so this is ineffective. Okay, so the event is ineffective, so the answer to this is no. Priority event on first or second on upcoming card. The answer is no. They're actually 3rd on the upcoming card. Okay, 1d6 roll of 1 to 2, and settle, certain to add something. Well, no, settle wouldn't add anything because there's no Saxon pieces on the map. So no. No matter what the roll is, the answer would be no. Saxon warband attack would remove an enemy's last unit and or assault. Again, no, there are no Saxon pieces on the map to do any damage. So next, Saxons have 20+ raiders available. Yep, they got all of them available. And a 1d6 roll of 1 to 4. So they'll have to roll on that. They roll a 1, so the answer is yes. Alright, they're going to raid. We're going to see some Saxons on the map. So, raid as many regions, not cities, as able, with Ravage or Surprise. Surprise may deep raid first region up below. So we need to check and see if they want to Ravage or Surprise with this raid. So looking at Ravage, which is they'd rather do. So if they don't do this, then they'll consider Surprise. Okay, so a battle or raid regions. Okay, where prosperity is greater than population, or if none, at 1 enemy controlled space. Okay, well that's not going to be a problem. Everywhere that everywhere on the map where the Saxons could raid, so that is adjacent to Oceanus Germanicus or Oceanus Britannicus, prosperity is greater than population. That's true everywhere. Okay, so no problem there. That doesn't restrict anything. So this is the condition where they'll do it with a raid. Only if dukes and or civitates victory at -2 or better. Okay, well that is true, because the civitates are at victory right now. Their control is greater than the victory threshold, and they are at civilian dominance. So the civitates are beyond their victory condition right now. So that is true. Okay, so they are going to ravage. All right, so back to the raid then. They'll use ravage with it. Well, let's check that out so we know what's going on. Okay, so ravage, they're going to try to terrorize the countryside and Britain landowners. So they can do it with raid or battle. Okay, location, raid or battle regions with Saxon units as desired. So as long as they put some raiders on the map, they can ravage there. Okay, and the procedure. Plunder may exceed population, so they can take as much plunder as they can hold, instead of being limited by the population of the space. But there's no assault, so they can't assault any strongholds in battle. After plunder, roll a d6. If 4 to 6, population -1. Okay, so that's the terrorizing the countryside and the landowners. Dukes, then civitates, then Scotti, no unit more than once, may force raiding Saxons to battle, and there's no evade or withdraw in those battles. Okay, so that's what the Saxons are going to do together with the raid. All right, so let's see how the raid's going to work out. So they want to roll 3d4 raiders at enemy control and or 2+ prosperity. Well, again, every space has plenty of prosperity. There's 2 or more in every single space they could possibly raid at. And there's enemy control at every single space, because it's all controlled by the Britons. Okay, so we need some tiebreakers here to settle where they're going to do this. So where least subtraction of raiders. So that's referring to if the oceans were patrolled, then they would have to subtract raiders based on the number of forts that are adjacent to that ocean. But these oceans aren't patrolled. The Saxons actually made that happen last turn with an event play that made these oceans unpatrolled. So they're they're reaping the reward right here, because they're not going to have to subtract any raiders. They're going to come in full force. Okay, so that doesn't help choose any spaces. So next tiebreaker, roll a d6. I had them do that. They rolled a 1. And so they're going where the highest difference in population minus enemy troops. Highest difference in population minus enemy troops. Okay, well, I worked all that out. And there's a tie there, too, between Atrebates, which is a population of 3, minus the 2 troops that are there. The 2 enemy troops that are there is a 1. And Icania up here, which is a population of 2, minus the 1 troop there, is 1. Okay. But they can choose up to 3 spaces for raid, maximum 3 spaces, and they can afford it. So they're going to choose both of those. And in fact, they're going to choose 1 more. Again, using this same priority. Oops, wrong place. Here it is. Where the highest difference in population minus enemy troops. So there's several places that are a 1 difference between population and enemy troops. So they made a random roll on that. That's what they did here. And they ended up selecting Regni here, which has a 0 difference. 2 population and 2 troops. Okay, so that was the next highest. All right, so they selected 3 spaces. They're going to roll 3 d4 in all 3 of those, and they're going to add ravage to it. Okay, so the Saxons have arrived in Britannia. And boy, have they. Okay, so let me walk you through what happened. So so the Saxons started in Atrebates. They rolled 3d4, and they got a big roll there, a 9. So 9 raiders. And because they're using Ravage, they can take as much plunder as they can hold. And they were full to the brim there in Atrebates with 6 plunder, so they took all of it. And now, Ravage says that after plunder, okay, so Ravage says plunder may exceed population. Okay, so they took all of it. No assault. Okay, so if they do a battle, they won't be able to do any assaults on any strongholds. After plunder, roll a d6. If 4 to 6, population -1. Okay, well in this particular case, they did not roll 4 to 6. I think they rolled a 1. Okay, so they were not able to lower the population. Dukes, then Civitas, then Scotti, no unit more than once, may force raiding Saxons to battle, and there's no evade or withdraw in that battle. Alright, so we had to go and look at the Dukes first and see if they wanted to force them into battle. There's a little box here, Deep Raid / Ravage. This is on the Dukes play raid card. Force battle on raiding or ravaging units if cavalry removal not possible. Okay, and cavalry removal is definitely possible here. In fact, it would be inevitable. Because the cavalry and militia would cause would remove 3 raiders in battle, and then they'd have 6 left to attack back, and that would totally wipe out. That would take the cavalry and the militia out. Okay, so the Dukes definitely do not want to initiate battle there. Now, the Civitates have an opportunity to initiate battle if they want to. So their card says, their play raid says, force battle on raiding or ravaging units if friendly troops would remain. Okay, and that's not true here either. Again, they would wipe them all out. The raiders would wipe out both the militia and the cavalry in this case. Okay, so neither wants to initiate the battle there, ravage. But we're still doing a raid here. So looking at how raid works. But by the way, the Saxons had to pay 6 renown for all these raids because they had to pay 2 for the 3 spaces. Okay. Yeah, so they paid 2 renown to place 3d4. If from patrolled seas, they did not come from a patrolled sea, so that didn't do anything. If region, those raiders may take plunder up to the lower of population or raiders as plunder. Such each unit may carry only 1 plunder. Okay, but Ravage makes that so they don't have to be limited by population. So they just took all of it. Then just placed raiders may battle an enemy in the space. If Scotti control or settlement plundered, Scotti lose that much renown. Okay, so basically, with the Ravage, everybody else got an opportunity to battle. But now that that's over, now the Saxons can battle if they want to. So the question is, do they want to battle here? Okay, so we have to go back to their chart now and see. Here we go. So back to the raid here. Okay. So so this is more instructions on if the raid is free to put more 3d4, and here roll some 1d4s, but we were already at the maximum of free spaces, so none of that's relevant. Okay, but the last one, battle only where assault, per battle tactics table. Okay, so they're only going to battle where they can do an assault, with basically the opportunity to remove a settlement, right, a fort or a town or something like that. Okay, but the problem is because they're ravaging, no assault. So even if they do battle, they can't do an assault. So I think these cancel each other basically. The raid says battle only where assault, and their feat, ravage, says no assault. So I think that just means if they're going to ravage, they're not going to do any battle. Okay, so no battle from the Saxons there. Then they moved on to Regni, and they rolled fairly well. They rolled a 6 there. again, took all the plunder, and we have the same situation. In this case, one cavalry, one militia. So the dukes don't want to battle. The civitates don't want to battle because the battle would just wipe both of them out. Just barely in this case. Not quite as obviously there, but it would. The dukes and the militia there, the cavalry and the militia there, would take out 3 raiders, and there'd be 3 left, which would be just enough to take them both out. Okay. So neither the dukes nor the civitates want to battle there, and the Saxons don't want to battle there either because they can't do an assault. Okay, so up to Iceni here. They roll a 7 on that one, took all of the plunder. This time they actually did succeed at the roll to lower population, so they decreased the population in Iceni to 1. And again, the civitates don't want to battle, and the Saxons don't want to battle either. All right, and the result of all that is up here. The prosperity is now down to 60 because the Saxons took so much plunder. The dukes are a long way away now from victory, and control went down by 1 because of that population drop. So that cut into the civitates victory conditions there. Okay, so the Saxons have completed a command plus a feat. Okay, the dukes are next eligible. There they are up there, eligible. But they can only take either the event or a limited command because the Saxons took a command and feat. Okay, so going to their flow chart. First priority, intercept would battle greater than 2d6 raiders. Well, I had them roll on that, and they rolled a 10. So would intercept battle more than 10 raiders? It'd have to battle at least 11 with a limited command, so it would have to be in a single space. I mean, there are a lot of raiders here, but not 11. So there's no space where they could use a limited command to battle that many raiders, so no. Next bit, effective priority event, and dukes by sequence of play may use it. Well, they can use it by the sequence of play, but this is not a priority event for them, so no. A priority event for the dukes, first or second on upcoming card. Well, yes, the upcoming card has the duke's second, and we do see the gray shield back there, making that a priority event. So the answer is yes, so the dukes are actually going to pass. So the dukes pass, and by doing so they gain 3 resources for the Britons. Okay, that is the end of this card, so everybody back eligible like that. The next card is Mariners by the Sea, and so the Scotty will be up first. They are eligible. See the shield icon there, so this is a priority event for them. Okay, let's see what they want to do. Scotty have raiders in 2 or more clear. No. The only clear area they have raiders is Parisi. The other raiders are all in hills. So that's a no. And or 15 plus raiders on the map. No, they have 9 on the map. And or greater than 2d6 plunder. Okay, so they had to roll on that. They rolled 9. Can I count? Yeah, 9. But they have only 5 plunder, so that's also a no. 3 no's. Okay. So no. Effective priority event, the shield. Okay, we did see the shield there. And Scotty, by the sequence of play, can use it. Yeah, they sure could use it, so we'll have to see if this is an effective event. So the shaded part, limited assets, flip 1 patrolled marker to no patrol, to flip 1 no patrol marker to patrolled. A barbarian may free raid now once. Okay, well, the first part is not effective because there are no patrolled markers at patrolled. every ocean is not patrolled right now. Okay, so I was wondering about this because on the one hand, it seems to me that this means, you know, a fleet moves. We're moving a fleet from one patrol in an ocean to another ocean. So I was thinking, well, I don't think they could just ignore the first part of it, not flip the patrolled marker to no patrol, and instead just flip a no patrol to patrolled. I don't think they can do that. It seems to me that this whole sentence means you flip one over, you have to flip two over. You have to flip two. And I'm justified in that reading too, because I went to the playbook, which has this nice breakdown of every single card with tips, which is really great. So on the shaded side, it says, this shaded event basically allows the executing faction to shift a single patrol from one sea to another, just as I thought. Note that there must be at least one patrolled sea for this event to take effect. Okay. Now that made it sound like the whole event is now ineffective if there's no patrolled sea. But I don't know. I mean, they could still do the other sentence here. I mean, that's the end of the first sentence, and then there's another sentence. A barbarian may free raid now. So can the Scotty free raid, even though they're not doing the first part? Now, if we go to the rule book in general for events, we have this rule, partial execution. All of an executed event's text that can be carried out must be. If not all of an executed event's text can be carried out, implement that which can. So that does make it sound like the Scotty can use this and just say, well, we can't carry out that first bit, but we can carry out the second bit, so we get a free raid. And I think that actually is consistent with what it says here. I mean, it does say there must be at least one patrolled sea for this event to take effect, but I think we can read that to mean this part of the event to take effect, right? Because then we carry on. The playing faction, once the patrol markers have been adjusted, designates one barbarian faction, possibly itself, if applicable, to immediately undertake a free raid command, i.e. may raid its maximum number of spaces with its maximum number of D4 each, but with no associated feat, even if not eligible. Okay, so I think a reasonable reading here is that we're not supposed to think this entire event is ineffective. Just that if there's no patrolled sea, then the first bit of it is ineffective, but the second bit of it still is effective. And because of the partial execution rule, I think they can take it and play just that last bit. Okay, so that's the way I'm going to play it. I think it's a reasonable interpretation. So let's see. We're going to say that it is an effective event, at least partially effective, and by the sequence of play they can use it. Yes, so they will execute the event. So when a faction is using an event, it says for commands and feats we follow their flowcharts as applicable. So since this is a free raid, we'll use the flowcharts where they describe how to do a raid. And the second bullet point there, select themselves first for any benefits. So if this card says a barbarian may free raid now, so the Scotty are obviously going to select themselves to do it. And they're going to use their flowchart where it says, that's not it, there it is, raid. Okay, so this is what they're going to do. As many regions, not cities, as able, with surprise. They can't use a feat here, so they're not going to be able to surprise. They're not going to deep raid. They're not going to use ransom. Okay. If blah blah blah, per blocks below to the right. No, that's an event that's not in play. Okay, so they're going to roll the 2d4, their maximum number, where the least subtraction happens. But here's the thing, there are no patrolled seas again. So as long as they come in by one of the two seas they can come in by, Okeanos Septentrionalis or Okeanos Hibernicus, then there's no subtraction. They can also raid from Caledonia, up in the north, but that would cause subtraction, because then they'd have to subtract 2 for the 2 forts that are here in Coweti and Texuerti. Okay. But no big deal. They just won't come down from Caledonia. Everything they could reach from there, they can reach from the seas that are unpatrolled. So, no worries about subtraction here. Okay. Alright, so they have to roll a 1d6. I did that already. They rolled a 2. Okay. So, from 1 to 4. Target up to rolled number of regions. So, targeting 2 regions with their maximum number of dice here, 2d4. First, where Scotty already there or adjacent. Okay, so what I did is I just marked every place they could get to from one of these 2 seas that already has some Scotty pieces in it, or is adjacent to a place that already had Scotty pieces in it. And by the way, Federati do not count as Scotty, nor do Saxons who are in the employ of either the Civitates or the Dukes as Federati. They do not count as Saxons either. For most game purposes, there are. I mean, they still use home terrain, for example. But for commands and feats and whatnot, they do not count as Scotty. They're under control of the Dukes. Those are considered Dukes pieces. The Dukes gets to move them around and do stuff with them. Okay, so I did that. I marked all those spots, and then I went through the priorities here to try to narrow it down. So first priority tiebreaker is at enemy control. Well, again, every space on the board is Britain controlled, so that did nothing. So at highest difference in population minus enemy troops. Okay, so doing the population minus enemy troops business again. There ended up being 3 spaces tied at 0. Dumnonii is population 1 minus the 1 troop, that's a 0. Parisi is 2 minus 2, that's 0, and Textuerity is 2 minus 2, that's 0. Okay, so we ended up with 3. They only want to choose 2, so they're going to have to do a random roll to select from those 3. So Parisi up there and Dumnonii down here were randomly selected from those. Okay, so raid is a maximum of 4 spaces, right? So the Scotty can choose 2 more spaces, and this is free, so of course they will. So we'll carry on selecting some spaces. And remember, we have to select all the spaces, pay, and then resolve all of them. Okay. So next, so we did this, the second priority here. We'll move on to the third one. If raid's above or free, yep, this is free, for 0 renown, 1d4, 2d4 free, yep, this is free, so still doing 2d4s here. At least subtraction, okay, again, there's no subtraction for any place we would choose that they could actually raid. So here are the new tiebreakers for the other 2 spaces that we're going to select. First, at most prosperity. So essentially what's happening is the tiebreakers have changed to something new. they're prioritizing new things here for the next 2. Okay, so most prosperity is what they want to target next. And just looking through all the places they could raid, the most prosperity of them is Dekyongli here, which has 4. And then after that, it's Dorotriges here, which has 3. Okay, so that chooses the 4 spaces. Now they'll pay, but it's free, so done with that. So they're now going to roll 2d4. Well, I guess we'll do them one at a time, actually, here. Yeah, do them one at a time. Start up in Parisi, roll the 2d4, and do the whole raid, which may include a battle. So in Parisi, the Scotty got a terrible roll, 2. So they put 2 raiders in there and took 2 plunder. It's 2 populations, so they could take 2. And now the question of battle. Will they battle? Well, we have our handy-dandy chart here, once again. So in this case, we have 3 raiders, and oh, I should make this a little clearer. Oh, okay. They're going to battle only where assault. That is to say, only where they could remove a stronghold during the assault phase. Okay, and to figure that out, you use this chart. Can raider assault remove stronghold? That's the question we're trying to ask. Okay, so they have 3 raiders there, and the only stronghold is a hill fort. So this tells us that yes, they could remove the hill fort as long as there's no troops withdrawn into it. But looking at the space, there's a cavalry and a militia that could withdraw into the hill fort. I think a hill fort could take, yes, 2, it has 2 holding capacity. So it could take both of them. Not that it matters, as long as it could take at least 1, that would be enough for us to say no to this. Okay. So no, can't do it. All right, so let's move on to the next raid. Let's do Dekiangli. Scotty rolled a 6. So they put 6 raiders in Dekiangli. Took 2 plunder. That's the population. And now considering whether to battle. Now, it's a little weird, but they could battle the Scotty Federati, Scotty on Scotty, because the Federati are, under Duke's command. So they could battle them. So we have to look at, but still the same priority applies. They'll battle only where assault is guaranteed to remove a settlement, a stronghold. They have to be guaranteed that they'll remove one of the 2 strongholds in order to want to do battle here. So we have to check that. Okay, so we have the can raider assault remove stronghold again. So we have 6 raiders this time. The Scotty settlement can be removed with up to 2 withdrawn units, which is its maximum capacity. 0 to 2 is the capacity for settlements, hill forts, and forts. 0 to 4 is town. 0 to 6 is Abarakam. 0 to 8 is Londinium. Okay, so that would be enough. The 6 raiders are enough to destroy that settlement, even if the 2, the maximum number, withdraw into the settlement. Okay. Problem is there's 4 troops on the battlefield. So that's a problem we'll have to deal with in a minute. The fort could only be destroyed by these 6 raiders if there's no withdrawn troops. Okay. So I think the way to think about this is the fort's out of the question, right? Any troops that withdraw in there, the fort cannot be destroyed by these 6 raiders. So the fort is out of the question. But the Scotty settlement still is in question. If 2 troops were to withdraw into that settlement, which is the maximum number that it could hold, it could still be destroyed by these 6 raiders. Problem is, there'd still be 2 troops on the battlefield. And each one of those would take out 2 raiders. So I think the way to think about it is, even if 2 troops on the battlefield withdrew into the settlement, there would still be 2 on the battlefield, which would take out 4 of the raiders. So now we should consider 2 raiders versus that settlement. So go back to the chart and go to 2. So instead of 6, let's just assume that 4 of them have been destroyed. And now they could only take out that settlement if there was no troops withdrawn into it. Okay. So they are not guaranteed to be able to remove a settlement using assault during the battle. So they will not battle there. Now for Dumnonii, they roll 5. They bring 5 raiders into this area. Okay. And take 1 plunder. It's 1 population. And now consider battle. Well, here there's the town, and we have 5 raiders this time. So 5 raiders go over to the town. They could remove it as long as there's no withdrawn troops. But there is a militia standing there, so if it withdrew, then they wouldn't be able to remove that settlement. Therefore, they won't do battle there. Okay, for Durotriges, Scotty rolls a 4. So 4 raiders come into Durotriges, and they take 2 plunder, the population there. Okay, now I was thinking, when I was trying to consider the battle, I was thinking, well, they've got some other Scotty pieces here. Sorry, kind of a glare. Like I said, I have to work on the lights in here, but those are the Scotty settlement, Scotty pieces there. So I was thinking, oh, would they battle, they could use these pieces too. But that's not true. I mean, raid says, priorities for raid say, then just placed raiders may battle an enemy there. Okay, so it's just the just placed raiders that can battle. And that's actually an important consideration from earlier too, because in Parisi there was already 1 raider there. I added 2, or the Scotty added 2. So actually, in considering battle, it should have been just the 2 new ones. The one that was already there should not have been considered. Didn't matter because that wasn't enough to do battle anyway. But just for the sake of understanding, so we only consider the raiders who were just placed there and whether they will do battle. Here, clearly not. There's only 4 of them. We're talking about a town that could hold all 4 of these, the 3 cavalry and the militia, so there's no way. But just to be clear, okay, so 4 here, and then go over to town. Actually, they wouldn't be able to remove that town even if nobody was in it. So that's it. They're not going to battle there. All right, well, that's the free raid for the Scotty. So the Dukes is up next, and I have a sneaking suspicion that the Dukes is going to want to do some intercepting. This is well, a plunder fest. I mean, prosperity is tanking in Britain here, down to 53 from its original 80. So, yeah, I think the Dukes is probably going to want to intercept. But let's see. Okay, first thing to check is, guess what? Intercept. Intercept would battle greater than 2d6 raiders. Well, they rolled a 2d6. They rolled an 8. So, gotta battle at least 9 of these pesky raiders. I counted it up, and the Dukes right now, without moving a single piece, would battle 28 raiders. And that would be for free. They wouldn't even have to move anything. They could just, from where they're standing, they would battle 28 of them. And they could move a few, cavalry around to make that number even higher. So this is going to be a bloodbath, I think. Okay, so let's see how it goes. Oh yeah, the Dukes can use a feat here, by the way. They're using a full commanded feat, so they're going all out here. So leave 1 friendly troop per fort. Okay, unless able to retaliate, invite now. So retaliate says we're able to remove a stronghold of a raider's faction. Well, the only place that could happen is here in Durotriges, where there is a Scotty stronghold there. And I did the math, and I believe that they would destroy this stronghold in battle here. I think they're strong enough to take out all of the Scotty here. Okay, so I think retaliate is in order here. All right, so they're going to use retaliate together with this intercept command. And they're going to target that Scotty settlement there. Okay, next bullet point here. Remove most raiders able, moving from friendly control spaces, the fewest spaces needed, and move the Federati first. Okay, this is a little bit complicated, but I'm trying to work out how the Dukes are going to move. So what I did is I marked every cavalry piece that could actually move. So Carwetti up there's 2 cavalry that could move. Here in Dechiangli, 1 of the Federati could move, and that's the Dukes want to prioritize moving the Federati, so that'll be the first piece to move out of there. Because they only need 3, the Dukes only need 3 pieces there to take out all those raiders. And there's one cavalry down here in Solures that could move. So it's a total of 4 pieces that could move. I mean, the other people's pieces can move, but where they're standing is already a place where they could battle against raiders. So the Duke doesn't want to move them. Okay, so there are 3 spaces they could move from. Now, where do they want to move to? Well, like I said, a lot of spaces the raiders are already covered, so to speak. They've already got enough. There's already enough Duke's pieces there, maybe together with some local support to take out all those raiders. Okay, but there are many spaces that still have no Duke's pieces in them, but have raiders. Okay, but some of those spaces aren't on the roads, like Ikeni here. And there's no road going through Ikeni. So the Dukes could only move adjacent pieces in there. They couldn't just move along the road into there. And there are no adjacent cavalry pieces that could move, because the Dukes has to keep at least one piece with every fort. Well, actually, now that I think of it, the militia do count, so this piece could move, couldn't it? Yeah, I think it could, because as long as there's at least one troop there for every fort, it doesn't matter if it's Kiwitate, that still would be okay. So I guess the Dukes could move that piece and could move this one too. They could move both of those into Ikeni. Okay, I'll have to think about that. I hadn't considered that. All right. Yeah, they could move this one here too then, couldn't they? Maybe over there. Okay. All right, so maybe there's even more pieces than I was thinking. So I'll look into it and think about it. But we at least have those 4 pieces. And we're thinking about places on the road they can move. Regni too has a similar problem. It's not on the road. So only pieces adjacent could move there, but maybe this one could, yeah. Okay, and Atrobates has a bunch of raiders there, but that is on the road. So the Dukes could move cavalry in there. Dumnonii has raiders but no Dukes, but it's not on the road. But Durotriges does have some pieces. But they want to stay there, right? Because they want to do their own battle. I mean, they could sort of move here and then have other ones move in to cover them. I guess they could do that. But then the Dukes would have to select this space and pay for it, so that's an extra space. Okay, well, with all that consideration, let me rethink what the Dukes is going to do. Okay, well, it's now days later. I've been having a really hard time trying to work out the Duke's intercept. I find the bot's instructions on this just especially hard to work out. I think I'm getting my mind around it, but in figuring out this particular movement for intercept, I've come to realize that there's still something wrong with the movement that I did last time the Dukes didn't intercept. So I want to reconsider that again, because I think it was wrong. I still think it was wrong. So the correction I made at the beginning of this video, I think now needs to be corrected again. Okay, so to go back to that, we had changed that the Dukes put the Scoti Federati over here in Dechiangli instead of Parisi. Okay, we fixed that. And then I said, oh, they're going to move the Federati now down here to Durotriges instead of the 3 cavalry that they had moved from Eberacum. But then I said, oh, wait, no, they can't do that, because then they would end up having to select 3 spaces, because they still need to send 1 cavalry over to Parisi. So I said, oh, well, then they won't move the Federati, because that would mean they have to choose 3 spaces, and they want to prioritize the fewest number of spaces. They want to move the Federati, but that was the second tiebreaker. The first tiebreaker was fewest number of spaces. And then, second tiebreaker, move the Federati first. Okay, so I said, well, they'll still move from Eberacum so that they can move 1 over into Parisi without any trouble, and still get the 3 down here to Durotriges. That way they only selected 2 spaces. They ended up selecting Textuarity, where they moved 1 cavalry up to Votadini. Because remember, they have to send a cavalry up there from one of these 2 spaces because Votadini was not on the roads. So they could only send an adjacent cavalry up there. So they had to choose one of those 2 to send one up there. Then they wanted to choose just one more to cover both Parisi and Durotriges. So they needed a space that had at least 4 cavalry to spare. There aren't enough cavalry to spare here in Dechiangli. If they moved the 2 Federati and 1 cavalry, they have to leave 1 behind for the fort. So they could only move 3 from there, which meant that they had to choose 1 more space. But I think that was wrong. I didn't consider the spaces up there, Textuarity and Carwetii up here, that were also selected. So here, let me show you. We'll go back. I'm going to take these 3 pieces from Durotriges, put them back into Eboracum, and that 1 piece from Parisi will go back in there as well. Okay. But I'm also going to take that 1 cavalry from Votadini and move it back to where it came from originally, which is Textuarity. Okay. So they need to select one of Carwetii or Textuarity to send a cavalry up into Votadini. Okay. And they need to send 1 cavalry or Federati into Parisi, and they need to send 3 into Durotriges. Okay, so 3 here, 1 here, that's 4, and 1 up there, that's 5. So can they select just 2 spaces now to do that will also send the Federati? If so, then that's what they should do, because they want to select fewer spaces. We know it's at least 2, but they also want to send the Federati if possible. And I think they can do it. So the way they can do it is, instead of choosing Textuarity to move the 1 piece up there, they choose Carwetii to do it instead, because that gives them 1 more cavalry they could move to Parisi, for example. Okay, so the problem was that I had selected, when we moved that 1 cavalry up into Votadini, I just did it randomly, because at that point there was nothing keeping them, there was no priorities telling them to select one or the other. But now there is. The priority is selecting the fewest number of spaces while also trying to move the Federati. With that priority, with those 2 priorities together, now that we've moved the Federati into the correct place, we find that they do want to select Carwetii. Okay, so they would move 1 cavalry from Carwetii up into Votadini, and now the other cavalry there can move to Parisi. Okay, and now they can still move the Federati here from Dechiangli down to Durotriges, along with 1 of the cavalry there. Okay, so that I now think is the correct movement of pieces from the original, from the intercept from last video. Okay, hopefully that fixes that. Now I still have to figure out how they're going to move this turn to cover all their priorities. Sorry, I should have pointed out that Parisi is on the road. See, the road comes right through Parisi right there. So that is a legal move from Carwetii, which is also on the road. So the road comes across into Eboracum and then down here through Parisi. Now we can consider again the current intercept command. So the thing that's causing me the most challenge here in working out what the Dukes will do exactly is Durotriges here, because the Dukes they want to retaliate. Okay, according to their flow chart anyway. That's what they want to do. Yeah, here. We're able to remove a stronghold of Raiders faction. Okay. And they will certainly be able to do that. It's just a question of, do they need reinforcements to do it? That's the thing I'm trying to work out. Do they need to move any pieces in here to do it, or is what they have enough? So I've been trying to work out the math for that. And it turns out to be rather complicated, as far as I can tell. Unless I'm overcomplicating things or missing something. But it seems to me the Dukes wants to be assured that they will remove that stronghold, no matter what the Scotty do in response to the battle. So with that in mind, it seems to me that we have to consider 3 scenarios. There's the scenario where the Scotty evade. Okay, they would have to get lucky. They'd have to roll a 6 on a d6 in order to do it, but that's a possibility. They could do that. Another possibility is they withdraw into the stronghold, take some pieces and move them there to try to defend it. That's the second possibility. And the third possibility is they just stand and fight on the battlefield. Okay, so let me run you through those 3 scenarios and we'll see what happens. So supposing first of all that the Scotty evades. Okay, again, they have to get lucky. They have to roll a 6 in order to do it because this is a clear space. All right, Juro Triguez is clear, so it's not their home terrain, and it's not Fens either. It's not the other rough. So they'd have to roll a 6 to evade. Okay, but supposing they did. Okay, so all the Scotty pieces would evade in that case. So when we come to field battle, if all defending units evade, skip it. Okay, well that's easy. Then we come to assault. If all defending units evaded, withdrew, or were removed, attacker may try to remove defending stronghold. Okay, so because all their pieces evaded, now the Dukes would have the opportunity to assault in order to try to remove that stronghold, which is exactly what they're trying to do. Okay, there's the coup de main possibility first, but that only works if they're doing surprise, but they're not. Okay, so the next thing would be the escalade step. Defenders, including the stronghold garrison, strike, each unit inflicting losses equal to the escalade defense value. Apply losses. So the way this works is come down here and look at the kind of stronghold. In this case it's a settlement. Look at the escalade defense. It's 1/2, so every withdrawn unit and the garrison units inflict half a loss. But a settlement has no garrison units, so only withdrawn units would inflict that half a loss. And it can hold 2 withdrawn units, by the way. Okay, so because there are no withdrawn units and there's no garrison unit, that stronghold essentially does nothing during the escalade. It doesn't have any attack ability whatsoever. Okay, so that's the escalade. Next part, storm. All units on both sides, including the stronghold garrison, strike. Each unit inflicting 1 loss each, no halving or defense factor, apply losses. Stronghold garrison units absorb losses first, then withdrawn pieces do. Okay, so both sides assault, inflicting 1 each. Well, the Duke's side, they've got 1 cavalry, 2 federati, and a militia, that's 4. And the stronghold, again, has no garrison, so that's 0. So 4 to 0. The Dukes win, I suppose, but the result is nothing's removed because there's no withdrawn pieces in the stronghold to remove. And the Dukes don't take any damage, so nothing happens there either. Then the last bit. If all defending units, including the stronghold garrison, but not all attackers eliminated, remove the target stronghold. And that's exactly the case right here. The garrison unit, there isn't one, and all withdrawn units are gone. There's still some attackers remaining, so this would be removed. Okay, so if the Scotty evade, then the result is the stronghold is easily destroyed. Okay, now let's consider the scenario where they stand and fight. Okay, no evade, no withdraw, just stand and fight. Okay, so they're not going to evade. Now there's going to be a field battle where they're going to fight on the field. Okay, so let's work through this. So, important, militia and raiders are halved in field battle. So they only count for half. Okay, trap is the first, well, the 0th step. Certain units by the event may strike now. Okay, that's not happening. So withdraw, there's not going to be a withdrawal. They're going to stand and fight. Charge/ambush. Surviving cavalry and all ambushing units strike. Apply losses. And by the way, it is possible. No, it isn't. Never mind. I was going to say it is possible that the Scotty might try to ambush here, but they could only do that in their home terrain. So there's no chance for them to ambush in this case. So never mind. Okay, so first thing is that the cavalry are going to strike. Okay. So cavalry strike first. They inflict 1 loss. And so the best thing for the Scotty to do here would just be to get rid of 2 raiders for that. Okay, so they get rid of those 2. That leaves stronger units on the battlefield for them for the next step, which is the melee step. Surviving warbands, federati, comitatis, and militia strike. Apply losses. Okay, so now the cavalry's already done its business. Now we have 2 federati and a militia on the Duke's side, and we have 2 warbands on the Scotty side. So the 2 warbands are going to inflict 2 onto the Dukes, and the Dukes will inflict 2.5 onto the Scotty. The result is the Scotty have to lose 2.5, so that's both of their warbands and 1 of their raiders. And the Dukes have to take 2, so they will have the federati absorb that. Okay, because the militia is only worth half. So taking out the militia won't help. Each side has to absorb as many losses as absorb all the losses if they can. That's the way the rules are. So if there's extra that they can't absorb, then it's ignored. But in this case, they can absorb 2 losses by either the Dukes taking it or the federati. So the federati will take that. Okay, then the last bit is harass. Surviving raiders strike. Apply losses. Okay, so there's 1 raider left. It gives half a loss, and militia is worth half, so the militia is destroyed by that surviving raider. Okay, so that would be the result of that battle. Next is the assault step. If all defending units evaded, withdrew, or were removed, then attacker may try to remove the defending stronghold. Well, that's not the case now. There's still a raider left on the battlefield. So the Dukes here would not be able to assault that stronghold to potentially remove it. So this isn't good enough. The Dukes do need some reinforcement. They need at least 1 more cavalry there. With 1 more cavalry, they could take out that extra raider, and that would definitely leave them with enough pieces left to take out the stronghold while removing all of the enemies. So we do know that the Dukes needs 1 cavalry as reinforcement. But do they need more? I mean, what if the Scotty withdraw? That's the 3rd possibility. And here we have a little bit of an issue I want to point out. So the issue is with how the bots handle withdrawal. So when they consider, so this is the non-player battle tactics. Okay, so when they consider withdrawal, this is what it says on the player aid. Defenders withdraw if their defense and assault could save that stronghold or remove more enemy than field battle. Okay, and then this first bullet point. Withdraw in reverse order as placing units. 8.4.1. Within that, with plunder first, Britons admit Britons. Okay, so reverse order as placing units. Well, the other side of this player aid has the 8.4.1, place, remove, and move. Okay, so come down to the second bullet point here. Within that and otherwise able, target enemy and place friendly stronghold pieces first, forts, then towns, hill fort settlements, then units, cavalry, then comitates, warbands, militia, raiders. Okay, so that gives us the order that things are placed. Okay, so taking what it said seriously on the other side, they would always withdraw in the opposite order. So raiders would be first, then militia, then warbands, comitates, cavalry. Okay, so that looks like the Scotti, if they were going to withdraw, they would choose raiders to withdraw first. Okay, and I was curious about that because I actually thought I'd read somewhere in the rule book that raiders weren't allowed to withdraw. But I think I'm wrong about that. You know, just looking through the rule book, I was trying to find where it said that, and I couldn't find it anywhere, so I think maybe I was confusing the rules of this game with maybe a different game. But whenever they talk about withdraw, they talk about troops. Sorry, they don't talk about troops. They talk about units. And units includes troops and raiders. So if they wanted to say that only troops could withdraw, I would think they would use the word troop rather than unit. Okay, but everywhere withdraw is talked about, it's always unit. So I think raiders can withdraw. I think that is legal. Okay, but the problem is when I go to the rule book and look at 8.4.1, okay, which is here. 8.4.1 starts on the previous page, but this is the relevant part. So within that, and otherwise able, okay, we have this a repeat of what's said on the player aid, but then the last bit, withdraw friendly pieces into strongholds in the same order. Within that, those would plunder first. So here we're told to withdraw in the same order, which would go cavalry, comitates, warbands, militia, then raiders. That would be the same order. So here we're told withdraw in the same order, but on the non-player battle tactics, it says to withdraw in reverse order. Okay, so not really clear what we're supposed to do. Is it reverse order or is it same order? This also these references are interesting, 3.6.3 and also 8.4.3. 8.4.3 doesn't exist because this section ends at 8.4.2 and the next bit's just 8.5. So I'm not sure if they're referring to maybe this paragraph that just is missing the number, or if that's just a typo and that's supposed to be referring to something else. I don't quite know, but that reference doesn't make any sense. Okay, so which is it though? Is it reverse order or same order? Well, I think it'd be interesting to run through both of those scenarios and see what happens. What if they withdraw raiders? Let's see what happens then. What if they withdraw the warbands? Let's see what happens then. So I posted a question to the rules forum for this game on Board Game Geek about this, and see. I'm hoping we can get some kind of official answer on which is correct, the player aid or the rule book. But I think probably the player aid is correct. I think the rule book is probably wrong on this. But here's what I want to do, and I came to this opinion by trying to work this out. So I ran through both scenarios, like what would happen if they withdraw the raiders, and what would happen if they withdraw the warbands. And by doing that, I think I've convinced myself that withdrawing the raiders is a better move. Okay, but let me show you. I'm gonna work through it here. So let's try if they were to withdraw the if they were to withdraw the warbands here. So let's just work through what would happen. Okay, so assuming they don't evade, okay, we go to field battle, and we're at the withdrawal step. Okay, and the settlement here has a capacity of 2, so they could withdraw both of these warbands into it, like so. The raiders would have to stay out on the field of battle. Okay, so they withdrew. So the next thing would be charge and ambush. That's when the cavalry attack and apply losses. Okay, so we have one cavalry here. They attack, and so they would apply 1 loss. Well, actually, they wouldn't do that, would they? They wouldn't take the plunder away right away. Okay, so they would take these 2 away. All right. So cavalry attacks, and the Scotti have to absorb 1 loss. Okay, so they would lose 2 raiders. Okay, so they're gone. Okay, next bit would be the melee step. Surviving warbands, federati, comitates, and militia strike. Okay, so the federati strike for 2, the militia strike for 1, so that's 2.5. That will destroy the remaining raiders. So they're gone. Okay. And the warbands for the Scotti have withdrawn, so they're not on the field anymore. So they do not attack. Okay, and then the last bit is harass. This is where the raiders strike. But the raiders are all gone now. Okay, so that's the end of the field battle. Now it would come to assault. If all defending units evaded, withdrew, or were removed, that is true. These two pieces withdrew, and the other raiders were all removed. So that covers everything. Okay, the attacker may try to remove defending stronghold by doing an assault. Okay, so that's what they're going to do now. There's no coup de main because that's not relevant. So we'll go immediately to escalade. Defenders, including stronghold garrisons, strike. Each unit inflicting losses equal to escalade defense value. Apply those losses. The settlement has an escalade defense of half, and there's no garrison units, but there are 2 warbands withdrawn inside. So those 2 warbands do half a point of damage each, so that's 1. And so the Dukes has to absorb 1 loss during the escalade step. But that's no big deal for the Dukes because the Dukes may have 1 attacking cavalry absorb double loss, usually 2 losses to remove, perhaps preventing any removal, but then the first unit removed must be that cavalry. Okay, so that means that the Dukes can simply say, okay, this cavalry is going to take the 1 loss. It takes 2 to remove it, so nothing happens. But if the Dukes had to absorb 2 losses, they couldn't say, I'll have the cavalry absorb 1, and so it doesn't get removed, and then I'll have one of the federati, for example, absorb 1, or maybe the militia. That wouldn't work. If you're going to use the cavalry as a 2-pointer, then it has to absorb at least 2 points. If at least 2 points are being given to them. It's a little confusing. If it's just 1 point of damage they have to absorb, fine. The cavalry can just absorb that, nothing happens. But if it's at least 2, then if you want to use the cavalry as double, you have to apply all of it to them. Both. You have to apply both to it. Not sure that makes sense, but okay. Let's move on. The next part would be storm. So now all units on both sides strike, each unit inflicting 1 loss each. Okay, so there's 4 pieces on the Duke's side. That will obviously destroy both of these. And these are going to do 2 damage back. Okay. So the Dukes would probably have like one of the militia and one of the federati probably take that. Okay, so probably something like that. Okay, doesn't much matter how it would actually go for our demonstration here. Okay, but the next part, if all defending units, including stronghold garrison, but not all attackers eliminated, remove the target stronghold. Yeah, that's true. So stronghold goes away. So that worked fine. And the Dukes ends up with 1 cavalry and 1 other piece, probably federati, still there. But now let's see what happens if they withdraw the raiders instead. Okay, so assuming there's no evade, what they would do is put these 2 raiders together with their plunder into the stronghold. Okay, there we go. Nice. All right. And then on field battle, you've got the cavalry, which would strike first, doing 1 damage. Okay, presumably the Scotti would remove the raiders for that. Then now it's the melee step. So the Federati, the militia, and the warbands all strike at the same time. These warbands do 2 damage, and the Federati and the militia there do 2.5 back. Okay, so the 2.5 is enough to remove both the warbands, and the 2 that the Federati have to, the 2 that the Dukes have to absorb, probably would remove the Federati. Militia counts as half during this step. So if the Dukes tried to choose the militia, then they would only be able to, then they wouldn't be able to remove the entire 2 losses that they have to take. And they have to take all of it if possible. So they would have to remove the cavalry or Federati to absorb those 2 losses. So they'll probably send the Federati away. Okay, so now it's time for the assault. Nobody's left on the battlefield, so they can now assault. The escalade step. Well, there are 2 units in the settlement, and its escalade defense is half, so that would be 1. 1 damage it would be doing, but again the Dukes can absorb that 1 damage with the cavalry, so that does nothing. Then the storm step. Okay, each side inflicts 1 damage each. Okay, well, that 1 damage each, so that, okay, it's 2 and 2, right? You've got 2 raiders on this side, and you've got a cavalry and a militia on that side. So they basically all just destroy each other. That's what would happen. And now the settlement is still staying there. Because you can't remove the settlement. The last bit here says, if all defending units, including the garrison, but not all attackers eliminated, remove the target stronghold. Okay, but all attackers were eliminated in this case. So the stronghold would actually survive this. Okay, so that leads me to believe that withdrawing in the reverse order is better for the non-player, which makes sense, right? You put your weaker units in the fort, leave your stronger units on the field for battle, and the weaker units are stronger inside the fort, right? Those raiders did more damage inside the fort than they would have done on the battlefield. On the battlefield, they would have just been destroyed and not done anything. But inside the fort, they were able to do a little bit of damage. And also, I think it kind of makes sense for the barbarians to want to bring their raiders into the fort, into the stronghold if possible, because they're more likely to protect plunder that way. Because raiders are far more likely to have plunder than warbands are. So that's another added benefit. Plunder is more likely to be protected that way. Okay, anyway, so that leads me to believe that the player aid is correct, and it should be reverse order to placing units rather than same order as it says in the rulebook. Either way, though, this was a long way to go to work out that the Dukes needs to bring 1 more piece to Durotriges. If the Dukes has one more cavalry in Durotriges, then they're guaranteed to remove the stronghold. So that's what we've discovered. So that's what the Dukes will do. Okay, so I've marked every piece that can move for this intercept, remembering that the Dukes wants to keep 1 troop with every fort. Okay, but that troop could be from the Ciutates. So, for example, this piece could move as long as there's 1 piece left here with the fort, 1 troop left there with the fort. That would be fine. Okay, so it turns out there's 6 spaces that they could move cavalry from, or Federati, I suppose. But the Federati aren't going to move. They're already engaged with plenty of Scotti down here in Durotriges. Okay, so there's 6 spaces. And remember that intercept costs 2 resources per move origin space. So it will cost them 12 resources to do this. Which, if you look at the resources here, I mean, the Britain resources are at 15. So, 12 resources, bring them down to 3, almost bankrupting the Britons. But according to the flow chart for the Duke's bot here, it just says remove most raiders able. That's all it says. There's no restrictions on how much. So I think they're going to select all those spaces and spend the 12 resources to move and intercept. I should have said that there are actually other spaces they could move from. Like, for example, this cavalry here could move out of Atrabates, leaving behind one militia for the fort, but there are already raiders there. So presumably they're already sort of engaged in an intercept. So an intercept could happen there already. And so those pieces are already sort of doing the business of intercepting. So they won't move. Okay, good. So now that we've got everything figured out, who's going to move, now it's a matter of figuring out where they're going to move, so that's going to have to be done randomly. So all the pieces have moved. Had to do quite a bit of random rolling to make that work, but essentially the way it happened is the Dukes prioritized Rodriguez because they're trying to do a retaliate there. They definitely need another cavalry there to make sure that they're able to remove the Scotty settlement there. But then after that, it was a matter of selecting spaces randomly that needed more reinforcements in order to remove all of the raiders there. And so they ended up picking Atrabates here and moved in enough cavalry to remove all the raiders there. They ended up picking Ikeni here, which is not on the roads, and so they were only able to move in 2 cavalry because they had to come from the adjacent spaces. So Trinowantes over here and Corioltoi up there were able to move some cavalry in. Not enough to remove all the raiders, but enough to make more of a dent there. Okay, and then they chose Parisi up there. I think they moved a cavalry from Eberacum to get there, and Dekiangle over here, they moved some more pieces from Eberacum, but that's where they ran out. So they didn't quite have... No, that is enough, actually. That is enough to actually take out all the raiders there. Okay, so that's what happened. Again, it cost them a pretty penny. Well, it cost the Britons a pretty penny, I should say. Down to 3. Okay, so now it's time to do all this intercept. Probably lots of raiders are going to die here, but I don't know. I mean, it's costing them so much that maybe the price they're going to have to pay for pulling all this off is going to be so bad that the Scotti and the Saxons are going to be able to bounce right back and be even harsher on Britain. But we'll see what happens. Okay, so let's do the intercepts now. We're going to start with the main action, which is Rodriguez, because the Dukes are trying to do a retaliate feat here to try to remove the stronghold. So let's see if they can pull that off. Retaliate says, in one battle space with enemy stronghold. Okay, this is a battle space with an enemy stronghold. So what happens is the cavalry can take plunder from the destroyed stronghold. And if the battle removes all that enemy stronghold, the Dukes will take 3 prestige and reduce the Scotti renown by 5. Reduce it by -5. Wouldn't that be add 5? Well, anyway, reduce it by 5, obviously. Okay, so let's get to the battle. So first up we have the pre-battle. We have to see if the defenders here want to try to evade or ambush. Okay, so on the non-player battle tactics here. We're in the clear, so for Scotti, they're not going to have any terrain advantage. So the troops here, the warbands, are not going to be able to do evade or ambush. Okay, but the raiders might be able to. So it says, if fighting alone or with warbands, but might remove no enemy, try to evade. Okay, and I think that's a obviously right. They are with warbands, but they might remove no enemy. In fact, I don't think it's possible that they could. The raiders won't be able to attack in field battle until the harass step at the very end. By then, they should be utterly destroyed. Just don't see how they could possibly be any left. Okay, so they rolled on that. They have to roll a 6 to evade, and they rolled a 1, so they were not able to do that. Okay, on to the next thing, which will be the pre-battle attackers. Well, we do have some Federati here, so I have to think about that. Oh, right, but they're not in home terrain, because they're also Scotty, so they can't do that either. So on to the field battle. Trap is first, but that is not applicable here, so now withdraw. So we have to consider now whether the Scotty will try to withdraw. By the way, I did ask on Board Game Geek, I asked for an official ruling on the question of, here. So the non-player battle tactics, where it says that if a bot is going to withdraw, they withdraw in reverse order from placing units. But in the rule book, it says they withdraw in the same order as placing units. So I asked about that. I haven't gotten anything that would count as an official ruling on it, but the few people who did share their opinions concurred with me that this makes more sense. You would go in the reverse order if you want your weaker units to be behind the walls of the fortification. So that makes good sense. Okay, so we will go with this and assume the rule book is wrong on that point. Okay, well, it does say here that defenders will withdraw if their defense and assault could save that stronghold. Okay, no, not in this case. The stronghold is definitely going to be destroyed. Or remove more enemy than field battle. Okay, so that's the question. Can they remove more enemies by withdrawing than they can by standing and fighting? Okay, so here's where running through all of our scenarios earlier comes into play. We know that having the raiders withdraw into that settlement will do more damage to the Duke's side than if they stay on the field and fight. Okay, so that is exactly what the Scotty are going to do during withdrawal. Alright, so now it's time for charge and ambush. So the cavalry will strike and apply losses. Cavalry, there's 2. So the Scotty have to absorb 2 losses. And they remove pieces in the opposite order of placing them. So the raiders will go first, and then one of the war bands, because the raiders count as half during field battle. So that's 1 to remove both of those, and 1 more to remove this war band. Next step is melee. So the surviving war bands, federati, comitates, and militia strike. Apply losses. Alright, well on the Scotty side, they're going to do 1 damage, and on the Duke's side, we have 2 federati and a militia hiding back there. So 2.5. Okay, that will clearly kill off this Scotty, and the Dukes will have to take 1 loss. They'll give that to the federati, surely. Okay. And by the way, although they would prioritize removing the militia before the warband, federati, removing the militia would only count as half, because militia and raiders are both halved during this part of the battle. And so that wouldn't absorb all of the loss they need to absorb. So you can't do that. They have to absorb the entire loss if they can. Okay, so they're going to have to remove federati here. Next stage is harass, but there are no surviving raiders, so that does nothing. Now it's time for the assault. If all defending units evaded, withdrew, or were removed, they were. Attacker may try to remove defending stronghold. Okay, so here we go. There's no coup de main. So up to the escalade. Defenders, including the stronghold garrison, strike. Each unit inflicting losses equal to escalade defense value. Apply losses. Attacking raiders are halved during this step. And the dukes may have one attacking cavalry absorb double the loss, usually 2 losses to remove, perhaps preventing any removal, but then the first unit removed must be that cavalry. Okay, and I think that's going to be relevant here. Okay, so sorry, I forgot what I was going to look at. Here it is. Dukes absorb first escalated loss with assaulting cavalry, if any, including during Civitate's battle command. Okay, so the dukes will use that option here. Okay, so the settlement has an escalated defense value of half. There's no garrison units in there. Holding capacity of 2, and we do have 2 raiders in there. So they will do half damage each, that's 1, but the Duke's cavalry can absorb that without any loss. So nothing happens during the escalade. Next is Storm. All units on both sides, including the garrison, there's one here, but they all strike, each unit inflicting 1 loss each. No halving or defense factor. Apply losses. Stronghold garrison units absorb losses first, then withdrawn pieces do. Okay, so the Dukes has to take 2 losses. So it's going to be 1 Federati, 1 Militia. We're going to have to go. And the Scotti are going to have to take 2 losses, so their raiders go. So that 2 plunder has been left on the field now. Okay, last bit of the assault. If all defending units, including stronghold garrison, but not all attackers eliminated, remove that target stronghold. Okay, so they did destroy this stronghold. Okay, now for the battle consequences. Unless enemy is Civitates before fragmentation, if cavalry fought and its side lost fewer pieces than the enemy, add 1 prestige. If cavalry fought and its side lost more than the enemy, lower prestige by 1. They definitely lost more pieces, so the Scotti lost more pieces, so well, plus 1 prestige for the Dukes. So that puts their victory condition a little bit higher. Okay, next thing is each fort or town destroyed, and no, that's not relevant. Each stronghold destroyed, attacker places 2 plunder from off-map onto attacking units, including cavalry if retaliate. They are doing retaliate here, so they can get that. And if Dukes gain 1 prestige, not against Civitates before fragmentation, if in city plunder all prosperity. So the cavalry get to hold some plunder. Prestige is up a little bit more, and that affects, again, their victory condition a bit more. Okay, next thing to consider. If a barbarian faction has lost fewer pieces than the enemy and survived, it gains 1 renown. Not true. If executing faction kills enemies with plunder, it may either distribute half, rounded down of it, as desired among attacking units, not cavalry, so here the cavalry can't take it, can't hold any more anyway, or if Britain return 1 prosperity to the space, or if barbarian and controlled space gain 1 renown for each. So here's the relevant part of the battle tactics for the bots. If killed enemies with plunder, take the plunder. Exception, Dukes return prosperity fable and not fragmentation. So that's what the Dukes will do. They'll take 1 of those and put it back there, and they'll lose this one. That means that total prosperity goes up by 1 also, and that adds 1 more again to their victory conditions over here. Oops, prosperity. There we go. Okay, that's the end of the intercept into Rodriguez. The rest of them I'm going to do off camera, I think, and I'll just show you the results of doing them, just because this is going to take a while. It's going to get a little tedious to go through each one. All right. Except I forgot to finish the retaliate feat. Okay, so the cavalry can take plunder. We got that. But also this bit. If battle removes all that enemy's strongholds, which is the case here, add another 3 prestige and reduce that enemy's renown or wealth by 5. So we have to do that bit. So prestige is now up to 6, and the Scotty lost 5 renown, so they're down to 2. And again, that pushes the Duke's victory condition up a little more. Okay, so we finally come to the end of this very long turn for the Dukes. So let me take you through what happened. The Scotty did not get lucky with their rolls. Their raiders up in the north that tried to evade in the hills, so that's home terrain for them. But they didn't get lucky with those rolls, so they were wiped out up there. They were also wiped out in Parisi and in Dechiangli as well. Okay, so the only place Scotty raiders remain is over here in Dumnoni, and that's just because the Dukes couldn't get over there. It's not on the road, and they were prioritizing George Triges, the only way through to there. Okay, the Saxons fared better. They were able to evade in Iceni. That's their home terrain, so they were able to evade there, so nothing happened there. And in Regni down here, the Dukes didn't quite have enough pieces to take them out, take the Saxons out entirely, so the Saxons were able to inflict a little bit of damage onto the Dukes as well. And the Dukes actually ended up suffering a casualty as a result up there in the casualties box. Okay, but the Dukes did gain quite a bit of prestige. They're now up to 12, because every time they win a battle, so to speak, that is, they lose fewer pieces than the enemy, they gain prestige. They were also able to put a lot of prosperity back on the board. So it is up to 60 now, and that puts their victory condition now up to 72, which is prosperity plus prestige. So they're getting back up close to their victory margin again because of that. Okay. And that's because they were able to put 1 plunder back in every one of these battles. Well, all right, that ends the turn. So I think I'm going to end this video here. We did 2 cards. It seems like we did a lot more, but we made it through 2 more cards. So I'll end the video here, and I'll hope to see you again next time where we will continue on.